Washington has a really big-time speed weapon, a wide receiver, in second-year wide receiver Terry McLaurin.
Yeah, Terry McLaurin has speed, and on the outside corners, that's the one thing they fear the most. The acceleration is really what jumps out at you. He's had a couple of big games already this season. Obviously, it's going to be a big matchup for the Giants, but they've got to get pressure on the quarterback and jam him at the line.
And that means the Giants' top cornerback, James Bradberry, is going to have a tough assignment.
Yeah, and for James Bradberry, he's been very physical on the line of scrimmage, jamming receivers off. I think he's done a great job in not just man-to-man, but in driving on some of the routes as he sees them. So definitely this is going to be a fun matchup to watch. I'll be curious to see if they move McLaurin around to the other side of the field, if Bradberry does in fact travel with him, if he ends up locking on to him the entire game. Because when you look at McLaurin, obviously they're going to want to move him around because he's their best weapon. And obviously with the changes at quarterback with Kyle Allen and Alex Smith rotating in there, they're going to want to try to get him all kinds of opportunities and targets.
Great 4.35 speed at the NFL Combine. But Sean, like a lot of receivers out of Ohio State, a really nuanced route runner. How does Bradberry deal with that?
Yeah, certainly you've got to tackle him. You can't let him get yards after the catch. He does a great job on simple slant routes or a simple in cut. His acceleration is phenomenal. So he comes back to the football really well, and then he makes guys miss. So that's how he gets a lot of his big plays. So number one, be physical off the line with him. Jam him up. Don't let him get that big speed burst, and then tackle him as soon as he gets the football. So for James Bradberry, that's obviously a big part of his game. I think the other part of it, John, is get pressure on the quarterback, because a guy like him, you're going to want to hit him with double moves. You're going to want to stretch the field, get the big play, regardless of who's in the quarterback. And if the pass rush gets home, that helps the corner out.
All right, let's go to the coach's tape, Carl, in strategy. And Antonio Gibson's a player that Washington drafted in the third round out of Memphis. How do they try to use him?
Well, he's a fast, powerful guy, Bob, but he likes to take one cut and get vertical. What you have to do when you're defending him is to get him exclusively running horizontal, because he puts his foot in the ground and he gets from point A to point B pretty quick here. And let's take a look at where maintaining your gap integrity is very important. When I say maintaining gap integrity, this is a basic off-guard play here, or basically off tackle. But what happens is, I'll freeze it, you get a double here, you get a guy here whose effort isn't great, and then your contained guy, or the guy who's forcing the play, takes a bad angle as well. There's your double. So here's the guy who can make the play right here in the hole. If this guy holds up on the edge, the back has to do this, and that's what your defense wants from him. But because the guy who's coming here to fill this gap does not do a good job of it, he literally vacates the gap. And you can see when he runs, he gets north and south and he punishes people.
Yeah, and I mean, Washington is the only team in the NFL that has under 100 yards rushing per game and less than 200 yards of passing per game. And they do not have a runner that's run for over 60 yards in a game. So the Giants can't let them get a run game going.
No, and then what they do also, Bob, with Gibson is they put him out as a pass receiver as well. You'll see him, I'll freeze it, circle him. There he is right there. Now, they trust him in pass coverage, one, because he has good hands, but two, he runs a good route.
Because in college at Memphis, Gibson also was a wide receiver. He started out as a wide receiver.
Exactly. So he can run routes and he has great hands. Now, this is a basic route. You got two guys coming here, two guys coming here. Your defender here has leverage, right? All you have to do is not be outrun. And you can, if he's got eyes to the quarterback, he sees that that's where he's going to go with the football, but he loses leverage, and your guy is off and running.
All right, Carl, let's now shift our gears and take a look at Washington on the defensive side of the ball. 15 sacks they have so far on the season, so they have shown an ability to get after the quarterback, and that's something that they've invested a lot of currency with first-round picks up front.
Well, they do. They have a really good front four, but their ends can bring pressure in and of themselves. So you've got here, you've got your rookie, here, Chase Young. Let's just look at the pressure they bring. They don't do a whole lot in terms of movement, but they just overpower you. Now, let's just take a look at this, Bob. They dedicated two people to Chase Young. He's a rookie. So you've got two people blocking him, right? If you know you're going to get a chip block, your tackle has to seal him to the inside. He doesn't, and Young is so skillful, he spins right out of the double team block.
And by the way, that's a future Hall of Famer in Jason Peters, who's now out for the year, who got, worked by Chase Young. All right, Carl, another look at what they do in their pass rush.
Well, here, it's more about what you don't do in your pass protection. Let's just count people really quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, right? Clear it out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is just falling asleep as an offensive line. So you've got a guy who can block here, you got a guy who can block here, a guy who can block there, a guy who can block there. So now you've got two guys to account for, right? The center can take one and the back can take the other. But because they don't communicate, let's see what happens. This guy is scot-free. Like, you literally can't have a guy stand in front of you and rush the passer without having any type of communication with the back. So the center takes a guy here, and the back's gone, so he leaves his quarterback out to dry. You've got to communicate when you have enough people to block it.
Will the Giants have more success through the air or on the ground this week? Carl, we'll start with you.
I'm going to say on the ground. I think they found some things that worked last week, and it's starting to look like a real run game.
I'm going to say through the air. Because of that ground game that they had, I think the play action is going to start to show up for them. I think they're going to be able to move the ball down the field, and will give Daniel Jones a little more time in the pocket.
But that doesn't make it more successful. Because a successful running game enables the latter to happen, the run game will be more successful.
All right, and again, I'm thinking they're going to have to throw the ball, even with Washington, a switch of quarterbacks. They'll be a little more secure with the ball, and we'll have to figure out how to get the ball in the end zone late in the game.
All right, Howard, I'm going to throw this one out at you to start with. What's the one Washington weakness that the Giants can exploit this week?
One Washington weakness that the Giants can exploit this weekend, I think, would be, if it's me, I think their offensive line is weak. I think we can get some pass rush against them. I think we'll be able to sack the quarterback possibly a few times, and you might be able to slow the run down, which will give the offense of the Giants a lot of opportunities.
Well, I'm going to just say, in addition to all those things you said, the quarterback, the change at the quarterback position, you've got a guy who's starting who missed an entire year, who's just trying to feel his way through there. So I think there's an opportunity there to really get him off his game or not let him get on his game.
Is Chase Young the most dangerous Washington player the Giants need to pay attention to this week?
They got a lot of guys in that Washington defense, in that Washington front you got to pay attention to. But Chase Young right now is having a phenomenal year. He got 2 or 3 sacks. He's doing a good job. You
notice he said, Carl, a couple other guys because he wants somebody to say one of those Alabama guys.
Of course he does. But, Chase is a guy that you have to pay attention to. But I think collectively your offensive line has got to communicate, or else any guy is capable of being a star on that front if the Giants don't communicate.
For the above the numbers for the New York Giants is right tackle Cam Fleming. When you look at the Washington Redskins football team, this is a defense that only blitzes 24% of the time. But with that said, they have the most sacks in the NFL for a team that pressures the least amount with 15, which is 6 in the NFL. We know that Ryan Kerrigan, Chase Young, Montez Sweat, there's going to be a rotation of players that it's going to be up to Cam Fleming to make sure that he secures the pocket on the right side and gets the movement needed in the run game.
I like that call specifically because Sweat and Kerrigan are the two guys who will line up opposite Fleming the most. Now, Kerrigan, over his 17 career games against the Giants, has 11.5 sacks.
Yeah.
He has been a big blue killer. Now, the other thing you got to remember is that when teams run at that edge or wide, they're averaging 6.5 yards a carry, which means Fleming could be a big key in the run game that could take the bite out of that pass rush.
Who do you got, Paulie?
Well, I got to go Kyler Fackrell.
Nice
now, this
call.
is a guy
I like
who maybe jumped it a little bit early on me because he had the big interception for a touchdown against Dallas, 46 yards, his first career theft, and his first career score. But here's why he's a big deal for me this week. It's because the Redskins throw a lot of passes to their running backs out of the backfield. he is probably going to have to play a lot more snaps because Lorenzo Carter is now out of the lineup.
Yep.
Fackrell, very athletic. In fact, they used to call him Fackrell the Freak when he was at Utah State because he's 6'5" with length and athleticism. He's going to be responsible for covering those guys out of the backfield.
I love the way that Fackrell finishes plays. He finishes his rush. He swarms to the football, and that's always when great things happen. And we know that when they're worried about which quarterback is going to start this week, pass rush is going to be a factor. The player that we need to keep below the numbers for the Washington Redskins, Antonio Gibson.
Well, Gibson's a guy who, when he came out of school, remember, he spent 2 years after coming from JUCO, was a wide receiver in college. Okay, he runs down in the 4.3 area. Tremendous speed, very dangerous in space. And when Washington took him, the anticipation was that Ron Rivera, who had McCaffrey at Carolina, was going to use Gibson as a McCaffrey-style versatile running back in their scheme.
And with that said, we know whether it's Allen or Smith starting at the quarterback position, this offense and Scott Turner's offense is predicated on play action passing. The only way that works is if Antonio Gibson gets going.
One of the things we all know about Daniel Jones is that he does have some mobility. Now, you're facing a Washington team this week that's got a very good pass rush. What goes into the scramble drill that he has to run, but also has to have chemistry with his receivers on so that you guys can make something out of maybe nothing?
It kind of comes organically. I mean, to some degree, we cover it because, like you said, Daniel is mobile, and you have to have some guys going high, some going low, and then, you know, some somewhere in between. So a lot of that stuff kind of pans itself out as the play goes on, but frankly, it's something that you have to be ready for every week.
With this Washington pass rush, everybody always says, well, the quarterback's got to get rid of the ball in a hurry. For you guys as receivers, do you have to be consciously aware that the rush may be getting to him quicker in a particular week and thereby maybe making sure that you guys work your routes a little bit faster as well?
I mean, you're always trying to get open as fast as you can, and they have a lot of good pass rushers, but, you know, we believe in our 5 offensive linemen to block them. So, you know, for us receivers, all we can do is, you know, try to get open as fast as possible, just like any other time, and rely on our guys up front to block them.
Final question. Darby was a corner with the Eagles last year when you had a career-high 154 yards and 2 touchdown catches while he was covering you. Does that maybe give you a psychological advantage now that you have to play him while he was with Washington this weekend?
I mean, I don't know if it would or wouldn't. I mean, you know, DBs have short memory, so I'm sure it's not something that, you know, it's probably even in his mind. But, you know, I look forward to going out there, and whoever lines up across me, I look forward to competing against.
All right, Carl, we're going to look at some numbers. 3, the number 3. Good things come in threes. The Giants have won 3 in a row against Washington, and they've outscored them 105-54 over that stretch. Why are the Giants matched up well against Washington?
Well, sometimes styles make fights, Bob, and other times the Giants just outplay them. The Redskins, like the Giants, have been in transition, so they've had the better of it.
Yeah, Eli Manning and Daniel Jones have combined for 9 touchdown passes against 2 interceptions in those 3 wins. All right, the number 102. The Giants have 102 regular season wins against the Washington franchise. I mean, these guys have been playing against each other for a long time. 55 at home, 7-3 at MetLife Stadium. It's one of those rivalries, Carl, I know you loved playing in.
Yeah, I mean, there was nothing like traveling to RFK Stadium at that time, and the place is rocking and the fans are going crazy. It's just a great rivalry.
The number 153. So, Devontae Freeman's only played against Washington once as a member of the Falcons. But in that game, he torched them for a career-high 153 yards. He's given the Giants a nice burst. Wayne Gallman also has 89 yards in a single game against Washington. They've got to get a run game going, don't they?
Well, they do, Bob, and we saw signs of life last week. So let's see if they build on it. They found what works.